Hello, please excuse the onesie. I've been calling in sick at work, so not at my best. Okay, I have got two halves of the how to write a book coin. I don't know, that exists. Sounds like some form of cryptocurrency. But basically, when I was at the writers' retreat, one of the talks at 1 o'clock was two people, Travis Elborough and Helen Gordon, and they were talking about this book that they put together called Being a Writer. And they read out some of the quotes from various people, and what it is, as it says here, advice, musings, essays, and experiences from the world's greatest authors. And that's true. It's got Dickens to Zadie Smith, and it's got Anais Nin, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Nabokov, Raymond Chandler, and it's got people from various countries as well. It's got Bukowski, it's got Hanif Qureshi, it's got oh god, it's got pretty much everyone basically. Yeah, so Gabriel Garcia Marquez and Neil Gaiman, everyone probably that you can ever think of, it's all here. And it is very inspiring, and it's difficult not to read through and find at least one writing experience from one of the wonderful authors that will relate to you and make sense to you, and you'll think, oh, I should maybe try it that way. That sounds like that would make sense to me. So there's many different ways to develop a writing schedule, and it'll be in here, and it goes from the beginning, coming up with an idea, to the writing schedule, to then getting published. So yeah, it's a really handy book. I like it. It's very sweet and helpful, being a writer. And now on to the dark heart of writing books, which is How Not to Write a Novel by Sandra Newman and Howard Middlemark, complete with threats to a kitten's life on the front cover. I love this book. It's basically, you need a tough... that's the strange thing. I am very sensitive, incredibly sensitive, and I do not have a tough skin. I've got very thin skin, and yet I found this hilarious. And when I first opened it, it's 20 mistakes to avoid at all costs if you want to get published. And there are different there's different chapters, so they look at different elements of possible mistakes that you can make, bad writing, and there's different sections. And what they do is I actually did a video about 7-8 years ago along this theme on my channel. It's not the sort of thing I'd make these days, but it's just as well, not just as controversial as this book, but there are people who loved it and people who hated it. Basically, they take an example, they do like an over exaggerated example of a mistake that you could make, and then talk about it a little afterwards. Like, for example, there's one bit that talks about the beginning of the story being, they call it the train journey, where it's literally just description of something happening, like the main character looking out the window of a train, for example, but nothing's actually happening, it's just description. And that's what that's known in the trade as, the train journey. So it's got some really useful insights, and if you can handle opening it up and seeing at least one or two things that you're probably doing wrong, and then laugh about it, I think you'll be okay. I do think it's an important book to read. if you don't mind sort of facing up to potential mistakes that you're making, because like obviously some rules are meant to be broken, and it's not that you'll never ever get published if you do these things. It's just that it's very unlikely, and that's what you've got to think about, I think. So highly recommend both of them: How Not to Write a Novel and Being a Writer, if you are like me and you like making words as well as reading them. Okay, now I've got to get back to lying down and drinking lots of tea, so good luck.